Hey, hey, sleepy friends and other passersby. Sleepy Reader here, Damien. I went to the Rose City Comic Con, I guess 2 weeks ago now, and I've been procrastinating on the main thing I wanted to do in a video for this, which was to show you some of the stuff I picked up. I did show the very few back issues that I managed to pick up at the con. Um, this con was I was always rushing in and out. There was always family stuff going on and stuff, so I did not get as many back issues as I wanted. I did have a tremendously good time exploring Artist Alley, which seemed huge to me. I mean, it wasn't just an alley, it was like 20 or 30 alleys. And that was a lot of fun, overwhelming, and so I kind of went there with two goals. One was to get prints, and one was to find artists who were self-publishing their own comics and sample those. And one was a self-publisher that I thought was there, and eventually found out on Twitter was there, who I already have bought a lot of his issues and corresponded with him on Twitter before. I'll get to that in a moment. So just in case, I talk even more in depth on the con with Longbox Review on his own podcast. We recorded it last week. I don't think he's put it up yet. As soon as I know that it's up, I'll put a link down below here to that conversation, where we both talk about the con kind of day by day. And he did the con much more than I did, because he came here to Portland just to do it. And that was a really fun conversation. It was really fun hanging out with him and his family. So there's that. And then I haven't decided if it'll be too long or not. Either I'll tack on to the end of this video or upload as a separate video another conversation that Eric and I had at a bar about Artist Alley and that kind of stuff. I was a bit tipsy. We were already joking around. Things may or may not come out the way I intended. Didn't mean any putting down of any artists or anything like that in the jokiness of it. I mean, I don't think there was anything too harsh there, but so I'll see how I play that. These here, what you see are the passes, the adult pass with this picture from Overwatch that I find unintelligible, the child's pass. My daughter turned out to be sick that weekend and did not go, but it only costs $5 to buy a child's pass, and you get a pretty cool Plants vs. Zombies picture. So, so there's that. And then the first thing, I think I'll go right to kind of one of my highlights, which was meeting Matt Laisi. I never asked him how to pronounce his last name. He's the one I bought, I guess 5 of his comics online. Antique, which is a 4-issue series, and another one whose name eludes me right now, a post-apocalyptic one about a guy who just wants to be left alone. So I haven't read Arctic Hell yet. This is an earlier comic of his. The style is a little less detailed, but still pretty impressive. So I look forward to reading that. And then I didn't find Matt till Saturday. I looked for him on Friday because I thought he was there. On Saturday I saw a tweet where he said his booth number, but by the time I was looking around, all I could remember is that it was T something. So it took me quite a while actually to find the T's. I was searching all around. There was A through Z, and then there was double A through double Z. All the Artist Alley stuff. But finally I found him, and he was kind of surprised to see me, I think, in the flesh. He's seen my videos, so he knows what I look like from the chest up. But now we got to see my pot belly, I guess. So that's probably not what he was thinking. But anyway, excuse me. I saw that he was doing commissions for a pretty reasonable price. I've really liked a lot of his art that I've seen online, but I never really thought deeply about a commission. You're supposed to pick a character, or you can pick 2 characters. For a little extra money, he'll put a second character in, or a little extra money, he'll put a background in. But I couldn't think of, like, what's the one character, from from well-known characters that I would like him to draw. I did ask him how familiar he was with the New Gods, because I almost thought of asking him to do Orion and Light Ray. And he said he could look it up, so he wasn't that familiar with them. So I actually told him I would come back when I'd thought of something, and I went around and looked at more of Artist Alley. And then I came back and told him I wanted a space barbarian, Conan in space, with a monster coming up behind it. But do it any way you want. And I kind of tried to point him in he wanted some art references, so I tried to point him in the direction of Frank Frazetta, John Carter on Mars kind of pictures. And I was thinking of, like, the monster might be like Tars Tarkus. I forget the name of those green four-armed creatures. But anyway, he said, well, that I have to think about that for a while, so I don't think I can do it here at the con. And he did it overnight in his hotel room, and I picked it up from him on Sunday. So here is the image. So he definitely went with his own concept of a space barbarian, which I really like. I love the quality of his line and the craziness of the image. So I was really pleased with this. It feels really unique. It's not like any other artist, and it's not like any other character. Although I think he is expanding on a similar looking character now, as I've seen on Twitter. But I'm fine with that, of course. And this may be, a similar looking character that he's done before too. But anyway, I just feel really, really pleased with this. I have to figure out how I'm going to hang it up. I even love the lettering he put in there, the sound effect. Grrrg. So can't quite figure out, how this monster's mouth works. But of course, there's lots of monsters out there with mouths that don't really make any sense. So yeah, that was a big highlight, I think, for me of my Artist Alley's experience. So I've gone right for that. Now let me show you some other, struggling or self-publishing artists that I stumbled across. Here's a fellow named Dan Hale. I got his sketchbook, which he cleverly has a space in the sketchbook to do a custom sketch. And I also bought this comic book from him, and I asked him to do a sketch of this character because I kind of liked it. It has a totally different effect in black and white. And this is interesting because he made a flip book, and he has more than one art style. So this is his art, and this is his art, which I found very interesting. This is something about some kind of orc. I haven't read these yet. Half-breed, half human, half orc. I think he colored this himself. We were talking about that. I think he told me he had someone flatting it. I saw some of his original artwork, which looked really good. There's his card. I had Matt Laiswinski's card, but my daughter or someone spilled water all over it. Flip for the color. So there's the color. I like the black and white version better. But anyway, he was a really cool guy to talk to, and I talked to him about writing his own work and working with writers. I think he's kind of switched from working with writers to writing his own work. So I don't know. I'll have to read this, but I'm pretty impressed by it, by the way it looks. The sketchbook, maybe, I don't know. I wish the sketchbook is interesting because it has a lot of process stuff. Do I like this size of sketchbook? I'm not sure, although it allows him to show the process stuff quite a bit. So that was cool. So yeah, this fellow, Dan Hale, is probably someone to keep an eye on if he sticks with it. It was clear that he has a day job and he's doing this at night on his own. So yeah, he was a cool one to meet. And then another person whose name I didn't catch, and his name is not on... Oh, here it is. I bought 3 comics from this guy. I had a nice little chat with him. I think we talked about about Simonson's Thor, and we talked about color in comics, and I told him I kind of liked the way he colored his covers. And so he had a deal to buy all three of his comics, so I bought all three. Let's look and see. So his name is Matt Blairstone. Sorry about that. And his series is called Mad Doctors. So this was quite cool, but I have not read this either. I've sort of been mostly trying to catch up with my regular pull comics and have not read much of the... And I can't resist some of the back issues I bought that you've seen me show in other videos. But this looks pretty cool. A little bit, I don't want to say amateur, but a little bit simpler than what you might find in most comics. Maybe on the level of some of the Alterna comics I've seen. But he self-publishes these. I feel like I tried to ask him something about the experience of self-publishing. You can't really tell here, but this is on a really cool kind of paper. I really like the paper this is printed on. And again, he does his own coloring, and I like the coloring pretty well. So here's another issue of Mad Doctors. This one, yeah, it's also color, but he likes purple and blue and some off blues, I think. So anyway, I have to see what this is about. But obviously it looks quite playful, which I appreciate. And then the final comic of his that I got is called Mondo Cosmico. But these look like characters from the Mad Doctors. So maybe this is part of the Mad Doctors series. And for whatever reason, he printed this on larger paper, I guess with less pages. Wow, I really like this paper. It's funny. So we'll see. It looks quite sci-fi, which of course I like. I particularly liked his covers. I like this cover a lot. Then, one of the things I was joking around with Eric, Longbox Review, is how, talking to these artists, I go up to their table and once I start talking to them, I kind of feel like I need to buy something from them, particularly because I want to support indie creators. So I saw this, and I was talking with the guy, and he was quite friendly. Frankly, at this point, I can't remember what we talked about. I think we talked about how black and white art sometimes can be really cool. And I really love this cover, so I bought this from him. Only afterwards did I look at the insides, and it was less to my particular tastes. It's kind of an indie style. I don't know what you'd call this. It's almost like a lithograph style or something. I'm not sure. I feel like I've seen other comics drawn like this. But it doesn't immediately appeal to me. But you know what? I might change my mind once I read it, because I haven't read it yet. And I did love that cover. It looks pretty crazy. Oh, and there's sketches in the back. So yeah, the other reason why I bought it is because it's a Portland-based comic, so that interested me also. So we'll have to see. I think he said he kickstarted this one. I'm not sure. Now. Maybe not, because I don't see a Kickstarter list. But here's one that I think was kickstarted. And this guy was also very friendly. I think I talked to the writer, Ron Bazillion, and it's kind of a redo of Dante's Inferno, but based in Los Angeles. I'm a big fan of the Inferno and comics and movies and stuff that touch base with that, or books. So I bought this from him. I think it was a pretty good price. I can't remember now. Not as cheap as if it were for sale on in-stock trades or what have you. And I really like the look of the art and the coloring here. It's mostly two-tone, I guess, with changing tones. I think that's kind of a clever way to go, with maybe a less expensive printing process, but making it look interesting. So I look forward to reading this. Looks a bit wordy there, wow. And so these aren't the kind of purchase choices I would make if I were just in a bookstore. It does affect me to talk to the creators. But perhaps that'll be a good way to try new things. I guess most of it's in brown. Does it ever get back to it? Oh, there's a little... Anyway, interesting. I'm looking forward to reading that. And then I talked to a professional creator, Dan Parent. And I talked about this elsewhere, I think. But so I came up to him, and he was... he looked like there was nobody bothering him. No, he wasn't getting a lot of attention at that moment. So I thought it would be okay to go up and start chatting with him. But he seemed a little... It felt like I'd interrupted him from something. So maybe he was deep in an important text conversation on his iPhone or something. But I told him how my daughter and I were reading a lot of his stuff. And whenever I really enjoy a Archie comic and I look back at who wrote it, it's usually Dan Parent. I don't know if he wrote this or if he just drew it. He also drew something from the first issue of, what was it called? Harvey... There's a new comic book reviving the Harvey characters like Little Dot and Richie Rich. And Dan Parent was in that too, but I already got that from another shop. So, and I've been meaning to get all these Die Kitty Kitty in single issues. It kind of makes fun of Archie and Harvey, I believe. But maybe kind of a crossover between Archie and Harvey with an adult thing. So I bought the hardback from him. I probably, if I wasn't face-to-face with the artist, I would have looked for a cheaper way to get this. But anyway, that's me being too honest, perhaps. But I do like to have things in hardcover, so that's good. There's a bit of a gutter loss here, so I don't know if the binding has done that well. But it was interesting to just sort of see what Dan Parent was like in person. He's a very dapper type of person with a fancy mustache and beard. And so anyway, well, one thing I said, I talked to him a little bit about Archie, and I think he said he'd been doing it for 20 or 25 years, or did he even say 30? And he said, yeah, they come to me a lot because I'm fast. So maybe he's a little bitter. I'm not sure. I did hear that in the past, Archie did not pay well or treat its creators well. And now a lot of Archie's moved on to the updated Archie that's more fit for the kind of comics you get at a comic book store. But I do see they now have brought back some Dan Parent Archie comic. But he is really talented, so I look forward to reading this. Now, here's the purchase I perhaps most foolishly made. No insult to Steve Davala, but with a graphic novel or comic book, you can look at the art. He started chatting me up, and he seemed nice, and I thought, oh, what the heck, I'll just buy his book. So, and then he tried to get me to buy all three, and I told him I would look them up on Kindle if I liked this one. It's a young adult fantasy novel. Looks very much like a print-on-demand type of thing. He was a nice guy, and obviously he had a family raising kids and writing novels, so I respect that. Maybe I'll fall in love with this book. Who knows? The Soul Kind Awakening. Okay, now on to prints. I was just wandering around, and I saw this print, and I immediately wanted it. I've been reading lots of Archie and old Legion of Superheroes with my daughter, and I enjoy all of that stuff at least as much as she does, if not more. And then I saw this print by Sandy Jarrell, and I had to have it. But apparently, when the person at the table really needs a break, they just send over a volunteer or someone who works at the con who just sits at the table and watches over it, and I couldn't buy it. So I had to come back later and buy it. But so I eventually bought this. Sandy Jarrell was really friendly. Told me he had a 9-year-old daughter too. He kind of has a look of aging hippie or something, which is funny given the style he draws, but love his style. He's done some Batman 66 and some other stuff I saw there. So anyway, I'm going to keep an eye out for his art in the future. I'd love, an all ages Legion of Superheroes that look like this, along with it maybe a more adult Legion of Superheroes. And so I guess because he couldn't even fit all the dancing pairs he wanted to of the Legion on this one poster, he also, with the poster, gives you these cards of 2 more panels. One, this is awesome, of Bouncing Boy and Triplicate Girl dancing together. And here is Chameleon Boy, and I believe his pet, is it Prati 2 or Prati? I assume that's who that is. Poor Chameleon Boy, I guess he's asexual and does not get to dance with a member of the opposite sex or of any sex. But I want to hang this up somewhere in our house, because at least me and my daughter will get a kick out of it, if not our guests and my wife, our visitors to the house. Okay, another person that I had a great conversation with was this fellow named Bruce Zick, and he had lots of prints laid out, and I was very attracted to them, and he saw me come back, and we started getting into more and more of a conversation. He makes his living doing kind of background designs for animated movies, like Disney movies, pretty major Disney movies and stuff, and he had examples of that up. But he did comics in the 90s, and I guess he still sometimes does comics with Dark Horse. One of the ones he was displaying was stuff that is written by Mike Richardson and drawn by him. But he said doing comics was almost like a hobby, and what he really made his money from was the Disney stuff and other Hollywood stuff. So I bought one of the Dark Horse books of his that he writes himself. I'm not sure when this came out. I particularly love his cityscapes. And he had this amazing print of Batman with this amazing sort of crazy Gotham cityscape behind him. And I really wish I'd bought that. For some reason, I did not. Maybe because as I was thinking about buying it, I just didn't have time to come back and buy it. And then I bought a print of his that is just a double-page spread from the 90s when he did Thor. And he said it was a lifelong dream to do Thor, and he loved the, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee era Thor. But when he was doing Thor in the 90s, they turned Thor into some kind of immature rageaholic, and he wasn't really that thrilled by the direction of the character. But I really wanted this picture of Asgard, so I purchased that from him. But I really should have got the Batman one too, or maybe a few others. So I had a lot. I can't remember. We talked about the Portland Blues Festival and all kinds of things. So I really like Bruce Zick as a person. He just seemed quite cool. Maybe next year I'll see him again, or some other con, and buy more prints from him. He had a lot of color prints too, but I really liked the black and white ones. And then on Sunday, after I picked up, or was it before I picked up? Anyway, I was in a rush on Sunday. I only could spend like 2 hours at the con on Sunday, and I had to pick up the drawing by Matt, and I wanted to go to the Dave Givens panel, which I ended up only seeing 10 minutes of. And then I wanted to look more in Artist Alley. And as I was briefly looking around Artist Alley, I ran across the Neal, and it literally feels like you run across, it's this bewildering, huge area with so many things going on. And suddenly I found myself, oh, look at that. It's Neal Adams. And there he was sitting at his little table, and there was this huge, giant, double-sized booth of tables with prints by him all over them. And there was signed comics and sketch things and stuff. And I spent as much time as I had looking over every print I wanted. I wanted prints. And if you bought a print, anything you bought, he would sign it for you. and there was no one else around. It was just, he had 2 assistants, himself, and all these prints. I mean, some people were wandering around looking at the prints, but there was no one bothering him at the moment. So I even fantasized after I pick out my prints, and maybe I can chat with him for a minute or something. I don't know, though. He may be pretty burnt out on those kind of things. I've heard some dicey things about Neal Adams. Anyway, I decided he had several sketchbooks. I decided I definitely wanted a sketchbook. And it was hard to pick. I think there were 4 sketchbooks, and I finally picked this one. But anyway, the upshot is, by the time I'd picked out the things I was going to buy and went over, Neal Adams had just stood up and walked away. And his assistant said, oh, he has had to go to his panel, but he'll be happy to sign these for you when you get back. We can save them for you and you can come back. And I was like, no, I have to go home in 10 minutes. So I was either buy this stuff and not get the signatures or not buy them at all. So I bought them anyway. And I'm not really, I can take or leave signatures. I'm not really, I like a signature on a book by a friend, like, hey, my friend finally published a book, let's get his signature on it. But signatures from celebrities or creators, I don't care. But I would have liked to take a shot at trying to talk to Mr. Neal Adams. In fact, I actually wanted to ask him more about the phase in his career where he was doing a lot of paintings. He painted covers for science fiction books and for lots of Marvel magazines and for other horror magazines and all kinds of stuff. So I wanted to ask him, because you hear about his drawing career much more than his painting career. I'm curious how he went about it, whether he liked doing it, etc. So anyway, I got this sketchbook, lots of cool stuff. It has little notes in it that aren't extremely informative. Like here, a very satisfactory sketch for a hybrids cover. Here it says, for Dave. Not sure who Dave is. Oh, sorry. More comp ideas for posters. Ah, what do I know? So it's kind of little, slightly ironic comments, which is fine, but I kind of would enjoy some more informative text in here. But other than that, this is fun. I mean, look at him going crazy there. I really, as you know, I love the process of the art, and I often like sketches better than finished product, and like black and white better than color, although, not always, of course, there's all kinds of variety. So here are the 2 sketches, 2 prints I picked out. This one is one of his Tarzan covers, which I think were from the late 70s or the mid 70s. I remember buying some. There were 24 Tarzan books by Edgar Rice Burroughs, and at some point they must have commissioned Neal Adams to do new paintings for all of them, and I remember buying some of them. I'd already had some of the older ones, which didn't have nearly as good covers. And I think somewhere out there are Frank Frazetta covers for Tarzan books, but I don't have those. So, and then I bought this, to me, amazing black and white, I think in pencil sketch of Conan. And I don't know if this ever was turned into a finished piece, but again, my love for black and white and the process. I mean, this is just beautiful and detailed and wonderful. I did sort of looking through the sketchbook and like looking at this and thinking about Neal Adams, and my daughter was kind of repelled by these, but then I showed her Neal Adams covers from the 60s that we'd bought recently, like on Legion of Superheroes and Superman comics, and she really liked those. And I realized that one of the things that changed in Neal Adams' artwork sometime in the 70s, but going forward and perhaps getting more and more extreme until the Neal Adams we see today on like that Superman book he did recently, The Rise of the Superman, is there's kind of a more of a gritted teeth aspect to the art. It's like, it's more, perhaps at times overly intense and clenched and, I don't know, and savage, if you will, which works really well for me on Conan, of course, but maybe a little less well on Superman. And there was more of a relaxed, graceful quality to his earlier work, and now it's more clenched is the wrong word, but I just don't know what to say. More sort of tense, and you almost imagine someone gripping their pen or pencil really tightly while they drew it, if that makes sense. Anyway, that was my con in terms of the Artist Alley. It was my first time actually approaching anybody and talking to them in terms of Artist Alley. Last year, I really wanted to approach Erik Larson, and I didn't, and I was kind of hoping for a chance to do that this year. But again, I was really rushed. I did go to see half of an Erik Larson panel, and that was pretty fun. So anyway, I see that this has gone on 30 minutes, so I will do a separate video of me and Eric from Longbox Review chatting about Artist Alley, and I will link to that below here. I might make it a private video, and only for people who've watched this video who are interested to go to that conversation can go to that conversation. Or I might change my mind and make it public. Anyway, chat with you all later. Bye-bye.